If you're serious about moving abroad, you can't just look at the cost of living or the bureaucracy. After traveling to over 55 countries and living in 6, I've learned there are hidden factors that can shape your experience even more. In my last video, I explained why testing a country from a hotel gives you the wrong picture, and why you need to mimic your everyday life instead. Today, let's go deeper with 10 not-so-obvious things you need to test before deciding if a country is truly livable for you. 1. Have you experienced the worst season? Visiting a place in the best season gives you only a partial idea of what it's like. But if you plan to live there year-round, you can't just go in the summer and ignore how cold and gloomy it can be in the winter. Even if climate isn't one of your priorities, you may not fully grasp the effect a harsh winter may have on your lifestyle unless you experience it, even for a week or two. And if it's a tropical destination, you can't just pretend rainy or hurricane seasons don't exist. Even the best climates have rough patches. All these unpleasant conditions are part of your new home, too. The only way to test if you can live there is to experience them yourself. For example, while living on Barbados, I learned that summers in this part of the world bring extreme sargassum blooms. The seaweed accumulates on the shores, covering beaches several feet thick. It makes swimming difficult or unattractive, and comes with an unpleasant smell when it decomposes. This can last a couple of months. You're unlikely to experience it if you come outside the bloom season, yet it's a big nuisance. 2. Have you taken off your rose-colored glasses? Moving abroad to live in a more exciting place often leads you to ignore or downplay the bad aspects of your target destination. But that's exactly what leads to nasty surprises. Have you ever checked local news to fully grasp the dangers you might face there? For example, if you're moving to a disaster-prone area, do you really understand the reality of facing such a catastrophe and its aftermath? Are you aware of crime levels? Are there any worrying trends? Take off your rose-colored glasses and look for the hidden downsides. Try to talk yourself out of moving there and see if you succeed. This isn't about finding excuses not to seek a better life, though. Rather, it's about being informed and making better decisions with clearer data. Every place has dark secrets. It's best to uncover them before you move, instead of discovering them later, when you're forced to decide whether to stay or go back. For example, I'm a big fan of Greece. While I always try to stay well-informed about potential security risks, I was unaware of the unusually high risk of burglary there compared to the rest of Europe, until I became a victim myself. My rose-colored glasses shattered that day. Had I spent more time reading local news, I might have been better prepared to face this reality. 3. Can you learn the local language, or can you truly live without it? If you're moving to a country with a language you don't speak, are you willing to learn it? Take some time to study how difficult that language is, and ask yourself whether you're capable of learning it. I'm convinced that with enough motivation, you can learn any language. But there's a difference between learning Spanish and Japanese. While you may easily communicate within a year of studying Spanish, chances are it will take you 2 to 3 years before you can hold a conversation in Japanese. Are you okay with potential alienation during this time? And if you're consciously choosing not to learn the language of your target destination, do you really understand the consequences of this decision? True, there are thousands of happy British expats living in southern Portugal or Spain who don't speak Portuguese or Spanish. Nonetheless, their social lives are limited to other expats and locals who speak English. Meanwhile, as a Spanish speaker, while I lived in Spain, I could communicate with everyone, making it much easier to make friends and not feel alienated. Will you be happy if you can't communicate with most locals? Will that exclude you from social events? Will that make you lonely? 4. How much has the place been changing, and where's it going next? Everything changes, and that applies to every single place in the world. Some change rapidly, and some change slowly. Are you aware of how your target destination has been changing over the past few years or decades? And are you willing to accept the direction in which it's going? For example, plenty of expats moved to Madeira, seeking peace and quiet when it was still a rather undiscovered destination. But the trend was clear. It was getting increasingly popular, with more tourists and expats coming every year. These days, it's not so quiet anymore. Those who moved there seeking a slow, tranquil life may no longer accept its current state. Meanwhile, those who didn't mind these changes may still be happy. While it's impossible to know everything about the potential trajectory of your target destination, you can research price trends, societal shifts, and infrastructure changes. Ask yourself how these changes may affect your life and whether you can adapt to them. If locals are already being priced out of living in the city center, that tendency may only accelerate. In a few years, even well-off expats may struggle to afford to live in a central location. 5. Are you aware of what's going on in the rest of the country? Some countries may not be great overall for expats, but have pockets that are very livable. And while they may remain this way for the foreseeable future, you can't rely on the bubble protecting you forever. Are you aware of the situation in other parts of the country? How certain can you be that the problems won't spread into these outlier areas too? For example, in Ecuador, Cuenca was popular with expats for being quiet, affordable, and relatively safe. But the rest of the country had struggled for a long time with organized crime. Eventually, that crime spread into areas that used to feel like safe havens. The bubble no longer protects expats in this region, making many question whether they still want to live there. 6. Is your target destination future-proof? When moving somewhere new, you often only ask if it supports your current lifestyle. But as everything changes, people change too. Will your target destination allow you to grow, or will it keep your options limited? For example, if you absolutely love water sports and don't care about hiking, you may be fine moving to a flat island in the tropics and spending as much time as you can at the beach or in the water. But if your interests change, you may be stuck living on an island that doesn't offer anything else outside of water sports. That kind of place isn't future-proof because it offers little beyond the water. If you're considering several places, maybe there's a place that also has some hills, mountains, forests, or other natural features that open up new activities later on. The same goes for your living situation. If you're single today, perhaps you don't care much about the education system or how safe and appropriate the place is for kids. But if you decide to start a family, you may be forced to move if you realize that your target destination isn't a place where you'd want your kids to grow up. 7. Will locals truly accept you? Few countries truly absorb newcomers in a way where you stop being seen as a foreigner. Many places keep the distinction forever. In any classic immigrant country like the United States, Canada, Australia, or New Zealand, even as a tourist, you may be mistaken for a local. But if you move to Thailand, Japan, or much of Asia, you're forever an outsider, no matter your language skills or efforts to blend in. You may not care about that distinction, and that's fine, as long as you're okay being called a farang in Thailand for the rest of your life and never truly feeling part of your adopted country. But if you want to blend in and become fully assimilated, it makes sense to figure out if you can ever accomplish that. While being treated as a tourist may be fun for a few weeks, it eventually gets old. Can you accept a future in which you're always treated as one? Or do you need to live in a place where the outsider label eventually fades? 8. How do young people feel about the future? Even if you're moving abroad to retire there and won't necessarily mingle with young people, pay attention to how many young people live there and whether they stay or move. When most young people want to stay rather than move abroad for better opportunities, chances are your new home has solid fundamentals: economy, education, safety, and culture. On the other hand, if a large percentage of young people immigrate, that tells you something too. It may mean limited prospects, political instability, weak infrastructure, or lack of hope. And if the younger generation doesn't believe in the future of the place, why should you bet your own future on it? For example, southern Italy is culturally rich and highly desirable as a lifestyle destination. But youth unemployment in the south remains very high, driving many Italians north or abroad. This doesn't bode well for the future of this region and may influence your quality of life should you choose to move there. 9. Do your values match? What you may consider to be universally accepted values may not be the reality of your target destination. These are not always obvious, particularly if you don't venture outside of tourist areas. If you care about animal welfare and come from a country with stringent laws, it may be a shock to visit a country where animal cruelty is a part of everyday life. Can you accept living in a place where you constantly see mistreated working animals, or where stray cats are dying in the streets? The same goes for environmental values. Burning trash in backyards, plastic-clogged rivers, or unchecked air pollution in places like northern Thailand, Indonesia, or India can be a huge shock if you come from a place with strict environmental laws. For example, when I visited Corfu, I was shocked by how littered the island was. Since one of my key values is respecting nature and keeping it clean, I didn't feel comfortable staying. Whether the problems were caused by inadequate infrastructure or lack of education, I decided to shorten my stay. There are countless important values that you may believe in that your target destination may not. Have you considered how they'll impact your life there, and whether you'll be able to tolerate them over the long term? In many Middle Eastern societies, traditional gender roles are still entrenched. It can be difficult to adjust to these norms if you come from a country with high gender equality. In parts of Latin America and Africa, bribery can be part of everyday life. If transparency and fairness are among your values, this can cause endless frustration. In cultures like Colombia, where noise is accepted, with loud music late into the night, street festivals, or fireworks, this can clash with your values of peace, quiet, and order. Societies that are more homogeneous or conservative, like Japan or the Gulf states, may show little tolerance for outsiders, interracial couples, or LGBTQ+ people. Even something as simple as punctuality may be a constant friction point if you choose to live in a culture with a relaxed relationship to time. 10. How do the elderly live? Even if you're not retiring, it's still a question worth asking. What lifestyle do the elderly in your target destination have? Are they on average healthy and happy, or is their retirement rather bleak? Some cultures respect the elderly more than others, heavily investing in their well-being, while others push them aside. In Nordic countries, Costa Rica and South Korea, the elderly are active, fit, and well-integrated. Meanwhile, in certain Eastern European countries, many barely survive on very low pensions. They're often forced to sell vegetables or secondhand goods just to get by if their family doesn't support them. What future do you want for yourself? While you can't be sure how your retirement will look decades from now, asking yourself this question may help you choose a place where your odds of a pleasant retirement are much better. You won't get perfect answers, but these 10 questions are worth asking to better understand what moving to a new destination entails. Watch my previous video in this series where I talk about why testing a country from a hotel is a huge mistake. You can see it on the screen right now. Subscribe for more no BS guides to living abroad.